Hello and welcome to the Wilson YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing a new segment called One That Got Away, and we're going to be speaking to a good friend of mine, Lewis Bowden.
Oh my god, I need to shit so bad now.
Now, in rollerblading, we really like to celebrate success, and we do that through things like magazines or through videos where we show people landing a trick, essentially being victorious when they're trying to accomplish something. We also like to fetishize when it doesn't go well through things like slam sections, which were really popular in videos in the 90s, or it's now been relegated to things like Instagram where, they show horrible bails, or you have like things on websites like Unilad. But it's very rare that we talk through the process of trying to land a trick, and sometimes it goes well and you walk away with the clip that you wanted or the trick that you wanted to achieve, and sometimes you don't get hurt. There's no heavy slams, you just don't land it the way you want to, or you don't land it at all. And that's something that we very rarely as a culture discuss or kind of investigate. In fact, there's been very few examples in videos where you see someone continuously try something and then just not land it in the end. The only really famous example I can think of, and I'm sure there are more, but the only example that really comes to mind off the top of my head is Jimmy Shuda in the Senate video. I think it was Project Mayhem. And he's trying to 540 into a car park, and he just keeps falling. His feet keep going away from him, or he'll roll back a little bit and fall. And you see the process that he goes through. So he adjusts his skates, he tightens his cuff, he takes off his t-shirt because he thinks it will make him more likely to stick it. But in the end, he just has too many tries. His legs get too tired, or he gets too beat up, and he just gives up. Something similar happened at the weekend. I was out filming with Lewis Bowden, who I've known for decades now, I think 2 decades. He's, one of my oldest blade friends. And it was the first time we'd been out filming this year, so everyone was a little bit rusty, but we're all getting clips for the new Wheel Scene video. And we went to this spot, and he basically just had a battle on his hands. So he wanted to do this line, which was quite complicated and quite tricky, and it was quite fast because the two objects were really close to each other. But when he first suggested it, I was like, that is quite, that's quite a tall order for, your first session out filming of the year with me. But he got it first attempt. It just wasn't as clean as he would like. And he then proceeded to try it another 30, 35 times. And in the end, just didn't get it how he wanted. But we have all the footage of his attempts, and I thought it was just quite an interesting process to watch, like the dynamic that changed throughout the course of filming, the other issues that came up with, the environment and the obstacles that we were trying to skate, and ultimately why he couldn't land it in the end. So we're going to get Lewis on the call. He's going to talk about it. We're going to show some of the footage, talk through some of the clips, and then at the end, we're going to show all of the clips, I think it was like 35 or 36, something like that, just so that you can see beginning to end someone trying to get a clip for a video or trying to get a hard trick, and when it doesn't work out.
I'm not going fast enough. I was like, no. I'm miles away. Oh, fuck! Oh, no. Please. Sorry.
How are we, handsome? Long time no see.
Thanks.
It's been a staggering 4 days.
I know. I've been missing you already, man. Fine. My body was dead after that session, by the way. Like the next day, my hip just swelled up like a balloon. I was supposed to go skating on the Sunday, but I just wasn't able to. I went out and filmed a clip with abs and then just headed home.
Was it not raining on Sunday?
Pardon?
Was it not raining on Sunday?
Not here.
All right.
It was dry here. I think it spit a little bit, but it wasn't. Yeah, actually, when we were at the spot, it started spitting, but it didn't amount to anything.
Right. So obviously we're doing a new segment. We're doing God, I forgot what it's called. What's it called? What did we
I
decide it
don't
was
know.
called?
Your
Shit.
segment.
I really need to be more professional in this.
Almost made it or something. The ones that got away.
One that got away. That was it.
Yeah.
So, talk us through the trick, because we got to this school. We'd already just been at a spot that did not look like a spot at all, and you got a clip on that after taking a slam. And then we went to that secondary school by pure chance, just because it happened. I just remembered while we were at the previous spot that it was round the corner, and then
Yeah.
you suggested a trick on this metal window ledge to rail, and I was like, that seems like a lot for such a small
No,
space.
you said no. It's impossible. Like
Basically, yeah.
Facial, like, impossible.
Well, because there's hardly any run up. There's not very much run up for the metal window ledge. The metal window ledge was like all hollow and easy to bend, and then the rail was very close after it. So I was just like, you don't have a lot of time to prepare, so you'd think you'd only want to do a basic trick on the first spot just to get to the next one, but instead you decide to start throwing in computer game moves. So talk us through the trick you wanted to do.
Oh, I just want to alley Mizzou 5 out and then can grind full cab rewind out on the rail. But full cab, not rewind, because I want to alley Mizzou 540 out and then can grind the rail full
fakey
cab
540 out. Alley Mizzou fakey 540 out.
Yeah, alley Mizzou. Did I say Mizzou?
I think you said alley Mizzou 540 out, but you can't.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
All right, okay. All right. We won't get bogged down with technicalities. So yeah, you suggested that, and I was like, yeah, bullshit, this isn't going to happen, because it was the first time we'd been out filming this year, and I was like, nah, he's going to be rusty. This probably isn't. And then first attempt,
it was just out of spite. That's all the first attempt was. It was the fact that you said it was impossible. I was like, fuck you.
I'll show you, you old bastard.
Yeah, the first attempt was perfect. And I'm kind of pissed off because the first attempt, I should have just jumped on the rail and did it just for myself. To 5'd out, and just the landing was perfect. The approach was perfect. It's one of those funny tricks where it's like, it's not actually, the alley Mizzou's not the hard part. The can grind, that's not the hard part. It's actually controlling your spin out. Like, you've got all the space to land and things like that, but you need to do a 540 and land like perfectly, like distance away from the rail to give yourself enough time to jump onto it and be in the right position. Yeah.
But everything went right the first time. It was just your feet were a little bit dodgy when you came off the fakie 5, and then when you landed the kind, it was far side. But
yeah, well, that was the second attempt.
That was the second. Because the first one I hadn't started filming yet.
Yeah, it was just me checking it, and then it was more like out of spite to you, like, fuck you, Dave, I can't do this. And then karma came around and bitch slapped me a little bit.
It just seemed, like the first attempt, I was like, oh, this went surprisingly well. But just when you landed and it was a bit sketchy with the landing, and you're like, I pull you up all the time for dragging one of your feet when you land. And as soon as you did that, I was like, please don't take this. Please don't take this. And then when you rolled away and you're like, I can do it better, I was like, oh, thank fuck. Like, I don't want to be the one to like break it to him, being like, I'm not keeping this.
Yeah. No, I knew straight away that I wasn't happy with it. It was just one of those things. Yeah. The thing with my ankle though, my right ankle's fucked, dude. It's like, because of you, I might add, filming with you.
The fakie 7 for primary, that wasn't my fault. That was your idea.
It was partly yours.
Okay.
The 3 wasn't good enough at the time.
I mean, it was only a little double set. You've done much bigger. You had a bigger fakie 7 in primary, so.
Yeah, no, but yeah, since that bail, all jokes aside, my ankle's been fucked ever since. I've actually got a meeting this Friday with the GP again, because it was like 5 years ago or something. My ankle still doesn't bend properly. So I can't actually, when I land, I have to land and put all my weight on my left leg, pretty much. Right. Because I can compress further on my left leg, and that often means my right foot pings out. Because if you look, it's always my right foot pops out when that happens. So it's joints.
It's joints that do that, because I wrecked my wrist last August, and I've literally only been able to start doing press ups this week. Every other time I've put even if I'm just like leaning against a counter, I'll feel it like shoot through the entire wrist and be like, oh no, don't like that.
I've not been able to do push-ups or press-ups since I was like 15 because my wrists are just mangled. Like, my scaphoid's been broken for years. I remember I broke my hand and I got like when they were looking at the break in the X-ray, they were like, "Oh, your wrist's broken as well," and they were like, "Oh, that's quite an old break. I think it's all smooth and things." And they're like, "Yeah, your bone's like deformed and things." When I went to a specialist, so yeah, my wrists are fucked.
I can only imagine how many skaters have that where they're like, "Oh, I'll just tough it out," or "Oh, it's just a sprain," and then years later they get an X-ray for something completely unrelated, and they're like, "You do realize you've got like other breaks here?" And you're like, "Right," because that happened to one of our friends. That happened to Sammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
When he went to Texas, he hurt his arm, and they were like, "You do realize this is already broken?" And he was like, "What?"
That's so funny. He messaged me the other day actually.
He's back in it. I keep calling him the born again blader. I'm like, "Oh yeah, you back at it, do you?" Because he keeps asking.
Born again blader.
You get these like born again Christians, because he'll keep asking me stuff, and he's like, "Oh, is this brand any good?" Or or "Who should I be watching these days?" And I'm like, "Oh, like such and such." And he'll be like, "I don't know who that is." And I'll be like, "Oh, like." I'll say, I'll say, "I'll buy some stuff from Muzzle, like Sam Curry's really cool." And he's like, "Don't know who Sam Curry is." And I'm like, "Oh, I used to run Dirtbox." And he's like, "I don't know what Dirtbox is." And I'm like, "Man, you quit, right? Get your old ass out here." And so
like he goes back to the days like Senate Mind Game and things like that. He kind of missed
that's it. He's like, "I don't remember anything after Senate and Mind Game." And I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm born again."
Yeah.
So that's his label. That's his nickname, Born Again Blader. Yeah.
Oh, dude, man, I feel like that's going to become something. Born again.
That is something. You see it all over the Facebook groups. All of them coming back, being like, "Where's Aragon? Where's Kevin Gillen? Where's?" And I'm like, "Man, grow up."
Yeah, the Aragon one's the only one that I'm so sick of people posting stuff about that. Like, give the guy a break. Like, you want to quit. Like, simple as that. Like, if he wants to take a step away, take a step away. Don't know why everybody's hung up on it.
It's quite funny. I watched there's a new podcast called The Coping Box by this guy called Chris Puller, and it's out of Australia, and Tim Ward's on it. And Tim Ward pulls the old man card out, and they ask him what he thinks of blading, and if it was anyone else, you'd be like, "Shut the fuck up." But because it's Tim Ward and he's literally one of the greatest skaters of all time on like everything, like vert, street, park, he would still murder anyone today.
The original all-rounders.
And he just turns around and went, "Oh, I don't think skating's very progressive anymore." He's like, "I don't really see any progression." And I'm like, I get where he's coming from, because I think he means as in it's not very dangerous, or people aren't really pushing the limits as much anymore.
I don't know, man.
But
you gotta think he comes from like the most progressive stage in rollerblading.
Exactly. It's an unfair statement to make, because one, he doesn't follow blading anymore. So he doesn't know about people like Carlos Bernal or Michelle Prado or Sam Crofts, who are literally doing massive tech tricks on huge objects. But he's forgetting that he grew up in the 90s where the majority of tricks hadn't been invented yet. So of course it's more progressive then, because we didn't know what the skates were capable of, and we didn't know what we were capable of on the skates. Like, every time you watched a new video, there was a trick in it that you'd never seen before. You're like, "Whoa, they're jumping the wrong way onto that grind," or "Whoa, they're doing cab 270s." So
that's what I mean.
Of course it was more progressive then.
Yeah, it can't ever be that progressive again, because unless skates completely change in some way that we can use them in a completely different way or something. Like, there's been so much done that there will be progression, but not to the same degree and to the same scale. Like, we're not going to find negatives again.
Yeah.
Like, you can, like, tricks are forwards, backwards, like alley-oop and true spin kind of thing. We've got hurricanes.
Yeah. My kind of take on it is, we've had the progressive era where we were figuring out, everything that is possible on skates and how far we can push our bodies. But it was also one of the sketchiest periods. And I feel like now we're in the refinement period. So now we know what's possible. Now we're just cleaning everything up and making it more aesthetically pleasing, which is what has been happening over the last 10 years. So I just kind of, it was kind of weird, because he's saying that, and he's got all the right in the world to say it, because he was there, he did it, he's got the medals, literally. But it's just very reminiscent of all those like angry old former bladers that just get back into it on the Facebook groups, being like, "Oh, why doesn't anyone do switch ups anymore? Why is no one do hammers?" And they're like, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah, I still think people are doing hammers. Like, I genuinely still believe people are doing hammers. Like,
They are. It's just not the dominant form anymore. There's now just a lot more. There's just a lot more variation now.
Yeah, but also I think I think a lot of people come back into blade and go, "Oh, his trousers, he's dressed funny. His trousers are too tight, or whatever." Look at it, and they don't actually look at what he's doing or what they're doing all the time to be like, "That is a fucking hammer."
I think there's an element of that as well, because people will watch Eugen Ennen and be like, "Oh, he's really tech." But see if you actually break it down, like some of the stuff he does in it are huge,
Yeah.
like doing misty flips down like double sets of stairs. And it's like, that is, Eugen Ennen has some
Wiles.
massive stunt tricks. You just don't notice them because they're in between all the other really like tech, complicated, intricate stuff. So everyone's like, "Oh, he's a really technical skater." No, he's a beast.
But also goes back to what you were saying before. When blading was more progressive, it was sketchier. Blading's not as sketchy now. Things are smoother, and when things look smoother, they don't look as hard to do. So when somebody lands a big gap and land it perfectly and flawlessly, it's almost not quite as impressive sometimes to when somebody just scrapes by, like by no more than like the width of a hair staying on their feet, and they're scrambling to keep going and things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're like, "Oh, he was lucky to get away with that." Yeah, whereas
exactly that, and it can come off more impressive because you're like, yeah, he like or she fought to the end to like really hold on to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think because it's finessed out, people think it's not as heavy anymore.
Yeah, that could be that. Well, good thing you're not finessing these things out and you're keeping it sketchy to keep it. So we've totally gone off topic here. Let's get back to it. So the first attempt, show the clip, you pretty much almost got it. It just wasn't quite right. And we're like, right, let's tidy it up. And then we got, I don't know if you counted the clips. I did, but now I've totally forgot. It was like, you put in a solid shift. That was like, I think it was at least 35 attempts.
Yeah. It's not my most amount of attempts at a trick, but
it's a lot for a line. I think that's the problem with line, because we're also not conditioned to skate line spots in Scotland because we have so few of them. We are like a gap or a ledge or a rail. So it's like, it's not as energy consuming because you don't have all these different steps or different elements that can go wrong.
I've always kind of skated lines, but I've always skated kind of sketchy spots as well that people haven't always liked skating. I was kind of lucky, like having BT car park as a kid, because I could grind the curb and then grind the ledges in Aberdeen. And there was a couple of actual line spots, like a ledge that came out the ground and then a high ledge and things like that. And I skate, like when I was like 14 or so, I started skating park then. So I kind of have always kind of skated lines in that respect. But I know like traditionally Scottish blading is more stand at the top of like a drop rail with a 1.5 foot run up and skate that.
Well, it's just because we don't have the schools, and we don't have the ledge lines or the rail lines, or those spots are like unicorns to us. And then when we do get them, they get capped very quickly because we basically we'll swarm it for like a couple of months straight, and then whoever's in charge will be like, "All right, I understand what's going on here now. Let's take this option away from them."
Yeah, I think because of the lack of some spots and things, like, I don't know. I used to get rips for skating certain things a lot. And I think that's because it was more what people wouldn't deem as a spot kind of thing. Like I would maybe skate a small set of stairs before something to skate is in a line. But I think that's maybe a thing of kind of maybe my generation of people from Aberdeen and like Dominic and things like that, because like Dominic skates lines. He can skate lines all day, every day, because he can do everything both ways. But I think that's also because around that same time we start to get skate parks in Scotland. So kind of open things up a little more. Like you're like a generation of blading. Just
I literally didn't have any skate parks when I grew up. The first
that's what I'm saying.
Like we would go to skate parks and be like, I have no idea what to do on these ramps. I don't understand how this works.
I was actually saying to Gammy at the weekend, I remember seeing him in a skate park for the first time in like 2002. there was that competition in Aberdeen. I remember Gammy couldn't drop in ramps. Like I remember him standing on the top of, there was the jump box that was like maybe like a 4 foot or 5 foot high, quarters either side. And it was an up, along, and down, like ridiculous when you look at it now. You just don't get boxes like that in parks. And he was skating the downs. He was doing like treetop bournes and everything. We couldn't get back up the quarter afterwards. Yeah. Like I remember him like going back down with his bag and things like that. And he was like, he looked like Bambi on ice. Like it's funny now because he can skate park and things now. But I remember them being like, this guy's incredible. And then watch him like dragging himself up the quarter pipe after. And I was like, what? Like, how is this a thing?
He sucks at anything that's not a stair rail. Oh, okay.
Yeah. he's amazing now though. Like, but there wasn't parks, like I guess for you guys who are a few years older than me, the parks kind of started popping up. Oh, can you hear me? Yo, am I back?
There we go. Right.
Yeah.
Stop getting sidetracked.
No idea what happened there. Sorry.
Right. Back to the spot. So first attempt went well, and then talk us through what started happening after that.
I was fucking tired. Like that was it. Like I was tired, and it was one of those things where, like, at the last spot, I'd banged my left knee and my right hip. Oh, that was so lucky.
I felt like the first attempt, you just hucked at it and you were like, all right, didn't land how I wanted off the fakie 5, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. And then I felt like after that, you just started overthinking it and being like, oh, I didn't land it right, or oh, my feet aren't in the right position, or I feel like you started overanalyzing it, and that's why.
Do you know what a lot of it was? When I fakie 5, sometimes if I throw too hard, I put my I drop my head and chest down when I land to kill my rotation on the landing. But sometimes it takes me a second to get back up, like to get my head up. So when I do that, it's hard for me. Like I need to land more stood up than normal.
Okay.
Than how I normally like would come off of a fakie 5. I don't know. I'm not very good at landing fakie 5s. I'm better at doing a fakie 7. So maybe I throw them too hard. So
that makes sense, yeah, because you see a lot of people that over rotate 540s, and you're just like, it's so obvious that you can easily 720.
Yeah, exactly that. And I find that especially when it's like a fakie kind of spin as well. So a lot of the time, which you might not see from the kind of perspective of where you were filming from, is I was just too hunched over. Like my body was like too far forward. Like when I was looking up, I was like the rail looked like chin height to me, and I was like less than a meter away, and I was gonna have to like get my ass up and jump onto it, and I was just like, I can't do it, kind of thing. Like
because in one of the clips you're like, oh, I can't stand up, and you mean like as in you can't can't lift your body up in time for the rail. That's
exactly what I was finding a lot of the time when I landed and I was going kind of like perfectly towards it. I wasn't stood up enough to actually hop onto the rail, kind of thing. That's probably down to my bad technique more than anything else.
But like alley-oop Mizzou is one of those tricks that on a high ledge, it can be quite punishing. Like as in, if you miss it, it's so easy to just give yourself a dead leg every time, but you hardly ever missed them. And when you did, it didn't look like you were beating yourself up.
No, not so much. My shoulder, for some reason, that was a weird one, was hurting. My right shoulder, which is the opposite one, not the one towards like the window or anything like that, the other one. I don't know if I was reaching around in a funny way, getting ready to spin. But I noticed when I was dropping off my shoulder, like one of them, like it popped, and I was like, oh, that's not great.
I'm getting really tired. Fucking shoulder.
Attempt number 5, right?
Sorry, man. That's a pain in the ass. Sorry. Everything just went wrong there. Right, okay.
We're on reliable Apple technology. What could possibly go wrong?
Wait and see.
Everything in your house, Apple. Lights, Apple. Door frame, Apple. Bed, Apple.
To be fair, everything used to be in my house. It's just not now. Yeah.
Oh, right. Let's get back on topic. So You said that the main kind of thing that was holding you back was you were tired, but I remember at one point you stopped to get something to eat because you said you needed something with antibiotic. You needed to have something when you took antibiotics. Is that right, or have I remembered that wrong?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's my first day skating properly after I had a sinus infection. I think I've had it for like quite a while, to be honest. But last week it turned, well, week before last it turned into an ear infection as well, kind of thing. So I've been taking antibiotics, and that was the second last day me taking antibiotics. Like all during the week before, I had vertigo and shit like that. Obviously, just from my ears being all blocked up, and I had some like horrible stuff coming out of my ears. But yeah, I get sinus infections a lot from having my face kicked in when I was younger, and having a messed up nose.
Okay.
Apple's freezing on me.
That's fine. And then, but then on top of that, the window ledge started to get pretty beat up as well, because you can even see it in some of the clips that I'm going to show you while we're talking about this. Like your sole foot, if you look in at those clips, you can see the sole foot like juddering when you land, because you basically landed on it so many times that you just created a massive dent there, and it was just going. Brrr.
That bit is getting so.
I don't know if you'll see this in the clips, but you were saying you can see my foot coming up. Also, in the same respect, my foot was sliding off because of that as well.
I saw that a few times.
It was kind of coming up. So there was a couple of times where I was on it and I was like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm just make sure I jump straight up rather than like spinning out the way like I would normally do, to be honest, off of something that because I'm not bothering where the fuck I land. I just want to land. I need to jump up, and my foot would just slip off on the sole foot before I even got to it. It's annoying because the kind grind's like the easy part of it, and it was just made so much harder because of the 540.
Did you, before I sent you the footage, did you think like, oh, we could probably use that, or like, oh, I could get away with that? Like, yeah,
I did, but that's because I was just I was still like kind of thinking back to the high of like, oh, I can do this. Like I've pretty much done it kind of thing. And then seeing it, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I was like,
I'll go back. I'm down for going back and doing it again. Maybe take like a couple of 2x4s and rubber mallet and try and fix the windowsill a bit.
I was about to say, now the windowsill was a bit of a mess though, so you're going to go back and I don't know, like alley at Mizzou on a kind of bumpy thing. It might not work as well.
To be fair though, I think I could do that on a fresh set of legs. I think that warm up on the high down rail, like I don't like flat rails. Like I have the worst bails on them, and like that being like the first proper like big kind of thing I've skated to get clips on this year kind of fucked me up a little bit, just in the heat as well. Like we're pasty white Scotsmen. Like I'm not used to that kind of temperatures here. Global warming and all that.
When I came up for the idea of this, it was because I was talking to Matthew Stewart, who we obviously both know and like now lives down in London and hangs out with like Sam Crofts and James Burr and all those guys, and he was saying that he thought it'd be a really good idea to have a video where it just talks through the process of landing a trick. And I was like, weirdly, we've got footage of the process of almost getting it but just not quite getting it, and that could be quite interesting as well. And it's quite interesting that as a culture we don't celebrate that. We don't ever examine when people just put in a shift or work really hard to get a trick and it just doesn't pan out. And the only example I can think of was Jimmy Shuda in Project Mayhem. I don't know if you remember, where he's doing the 540 over the grass gap and he just kept falling, and then he's like taking off his t-shirt, he's like tightening his skates, he's getting advice from people, and then they show I don't know if they show all the attempts, but they show a lot of attempts. They show like 10 attempts, and then he basically just like gives up. But it's very rare that you see that in a skate video where it's like, try. Normally there's a reward at the end. There's some kind of, release. And in that video, it's one of the few examples I can think of where it's like, nope, he tried and just didn't. It wasn't there from that day.
Yeah, I can't think too much of too many videos having stuff like that. The closest kind of thing is like I think Kyan Project and things like that. They'll have kind of like the attempts and working up to it, but they tend to land the trick. I think they have in all of them. I'm thinking of like the one of Quinny doing I think a rail hop rail, and I think something a Farmer as well on a kink trail. And actually, maybe Farmer didn't get the kink trail.
Yeah, he didn't. And
actually, I don't think he did. In some,
he didn't. It was in
a kink trail. I think it's a kink trail, but he maybe doesn't skate as a kink. He does one down and then goes across.
I'm pretty sure it's in Formosa. I think it's like a triple kink or a double kink or whatever, and then he lands, and then there's a really, really steep, like 30 or 40 stale rail, and a couple of times he comes close to getting it, and then he's just like, no, this is absolute hell at me, I'm done. So yeah, that is another example. That is a good one, actually. That is mental though. That's not normal people stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. But like as I said to you when you mentioned doing this, like the day or so before, me and Doubt have been talking about doing something which is more like a documentary as such, like talking to someone like about the process of doing like one of the biggest tricks they've done or something like that. We don't have too much of that. But I guess the way most skate videos and things are shot is more kind of documentary style, which is odd that we don't kind of show that side of things more often.
It is quite. There was a period in blading where they didn't even show falls. Like most professional videos,
yeah, loads of people hate it,
and it was as if. And that's why I always make an effort to put like slams in the video, because I want people to realize that there were sacrifices made to get the trick. And some people have given me like shit for it in the past, being like, oh no, you're just like, you're making people look dumb or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm showing how committed they are to getting it, that they're willing to take that abuse and keep going. And because there was a period where most team videos would come out and there would not be a single fall in it, and I think they were trying to like elevate these people to make them look like superstars or rock stars or whatever. But as a result, it took away very much the kind of realistic grittiness of skating, because it tried to make it look too perfect.
Yeah, which is unrealistic, and it comes off the back of that kind of like pristine hip hop kind of everything's perfect kind of style and era in blading, I think, which is something that I don't know. I don't feel like represented the work that goes into getting tricks and things like that. Like I'm a fan of seeing somebody working and then getting a trick in the end, knowing like, oh my god, like that guy took like 50 attempts, but then like he fastered that whole rail kind of thing. Like it's nice to know that. Like, and also I think it makes it people's blading more relatable. It tells the story more rather than it just being like this robotic person came along, he did this perfectly, and then he cruised off and parted, and that was that.
Yeah, that's why I always find it, because we mentioned Aragon earlier, and I always find it really interesting when people are like, oh, he's my favorite skater. And I'm like, I find it really hard to connect or relate to anything that he does because he does it, because it is so kind of methodical.
His early stuff is, I can't remember, like, it's not his early stuff. It's not super early, but I think like, was it Mind Game section or something like that, where he skates like some barrier kind of on top of a wall coming down from a road, and he skates that curved drop rail and things like that. Like his skating's not in there, like he's doing amazing Aragon tricks, but like some of the tricks aren't as perfectly landed as every other section and things like that he's had since then. But that's this kind of, I remember that era of his skating a lot. Like that stands out to me.
I don't know if it would have been Mind Game, because Mind Game was quite late, and he got into Mind Game quite late.
Yeah, he was on the last video, wasn't he? It was maybe been just before that. Well, it was maybe the second last one then. I think it was about that kind of time. But anyway, like that's not his more kind of his later skating isn't something that really stands out to earlier stuff, where it looked like he was really fucking trying to get shit and like everything looked like a new accomplishment. Like he'd accomplished something new.
I don't think I ever remember that period of Aragon skating. I think I always thought it looked very clinical, which is what I found quite off-putting of it. I would rather watch someone like, I don't know, Billy O'Neill just take a bit of a thrashing and then still, it's kind of like I kind of think of it as like the underdog boxer. Like he'll take a kicking and, you know, leave bloody and bruised, but he'll leave with the spoils. And that, I always found that more appealing, because you're like, oh, I can relate to that. Like I've had the shit kicked out of me at like countless skate spots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100% agree with you in that. I'm just saying, like, in his kind of like skating, like he's a person that I feel like everybody always like swoons over and things like that. And I don't like, I personally can't see why everybody is like that, but the most relatable time in skating would be then for me, kind of thing. Like I remember being like, whoa, this guy's fucking amazing, but it gets boring.
Yeah,
so that's like, it's too clinical. Like as he progressed and everything was so perfect, he was doing amazing stuff and stuff that like people haven't done since, kind of thing like that, but didn't get me excited. Like it goes back to, I guess, like what we're talking about, skating's kind of finessed out a lot now and things like that. But when I watch Brosco do a trick, like a big trick, and it's smooth and lovely, that excites me.
It's weird how that works. Like
when I see a guy that looks like he belongs in a Colgate advert, like I'm not as excited by that. And
plus, you're just jealous of his. You're jealous of his good looks.
He's got much nicer teeth than me.
He's got much nicer teeth than both of us. I think maybe that's it. We're jealous of his children's TV good looks.
But it kind of goes into like, I don't know, like buying into someone's kind of like brand and who they are and things like that. Like Billy O'Neill, perfect example of it. Like the guy's like amazing, like an amazing skater. He's done stuff that people won't do again, but also like he puts his heart and his soul into it, and he wears it on his sleeve, and you can see that. Whereas you don't really see that with Aragon, or you didn't really see that with Aragon.
Yeah, it's his determination didn't seem like a passion for blading. It just seemed like a determination to excel and be the best, which and it's the same kind of thing with some, I don't know, some kid playing football or whatever else. Like it bores me to a degree. Like after a while, like they're amazing. I can really appreciate and get behind like how good they are. It's amazing, but I can't connect with it. Like it doesn't feel as, I don't know, realistic to me. It doesn't feel like I can connect it. But yeah, I don't know where we're going. Yeah, this 10-minute segment didn't work out being a 10-minute segment at all. I was like,
no, you should do it with someone you don't know.
I should do it with someone that can get their webcam to work.
Yeah, that would help too. Yeah, that'd have kept it back 20 minutes or so.
So yeah, we'll finish this off. We'll show the footage so people can see the attempts, and then we'll get back in the streets very, very soon. Yeah,
I'll go back and get that though. Like I have to after this though. That's the thing for me. Like it's gonna piss me off if I don't. And also, I know I'm gonna get like, I know I'll get like the messages from people. Like,
you've got that. You've got that.
I know.
Got that.
Yeah, or like you better go back and get that.
Yeah, or the next time we go, they're just waiting for us with it, because the police showed up and we're like, what are you doing? And I think because I went to the gate and was like, oh yeah, we're just rollerblading. And they're like, that's like a middle-aged guy with a camera. They're not doing it in bad here. Yeah. But then the next time the school will be like, the next time the school will be like, you do know they completely fucked up our like school property, and then the police will be like, oh well, the next time we see them, they're all getting arrested
on that window ledge. Like, yeah, fuck.
Yeah, I can only imagine like, the head teacher or the janitor came back and was just like, what the hell has happened here? Why is there only damage to this very specific part of the building? Yeah. And what is that weird substance that's been rubbed along it? Yeah.
What is the residue on this?
Yeah.
Why is it a funny color?
I always wonder that when like people come back to things you've skated and they've just got no understanding or knowledge of what's happened. They just, I don't know, they just go away for the weekend, they come back to their property and it looks just aesthetically different. And I just wonder what possibilities run through their mind. Like if they think like, what conclusion they draw on their own without knowing anything about skating. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think skateboarding's like culturally so big that like anybody under the age of 40 will know, like straight
Yeah.
away. Like 50, well, kind of 40 and 50, kind of like above 50, like it's a hit or a miss, I think. But I think skateboarding is kind of like let people know exactly what the fuck's happened.
Possibly, yeah. Actually,
It's good because we'll not get the blame for it.
well, it worked. I had this really surreal experience a few weeks ago. We were out filming in this really small town, and I figured, oh, small town, like new spots, as opposed to just going into the city all the time. But the problem with
Yeah.
small towns is everyone knows each other, and
Knows
everyone's
everyone.
a social justice hero. So there was these like metal curved benches, and started waxing them up and started skating it. And then as we're skating, and it was in a perfect circle. There was like 4 benches in a row. I was like, oh, we're going to get amazing lines here. This is going to be great. And I was there with Elliot. And after the first couple of times filming Elliot, I heard someone go like, hey. I was like, that's weird. Can you tell where that's coming from? And I just couldn't. And it was one of the houses looking, and it was a park. It was a public park. It wasn't like private property. And then the woman came out and she went, you're ruining those benches. And we're like, no, it's metal bench. These are skates. It's not a big deal. Like, chill out. And she went, no, I saw you waxing them. And I was like, shit, how did she know it was wax? So we're like, oh, if you just let us get this clip, we'll leave. Like, if you let us get the footage, the less time you spend distracting us, we'll be out of your hair sooner. And she went, no, you're not blading on those benches. And I was like, how does she know it's called blading? You know when they start using like trigger words, and you're like, do you what? Like, and I'm like, does she have a son that played? Like I was so intrigued by just the language that she was coming out with. I was like, how does she know this is wax? How does she know this is what we call this? It was so weird.
Yeah, she must have her kid or something. When I was out to film Abs on Sunday, we went to this ledge, and I had to rub brick the ledge to get sorted, and it's just been painted. It's this super grim area in Leith, and for some reason they've painted this concrete ledge. So we rub bricked the fuck out of it, not realizing that people were going to be upset by this. Like, actually, in the background of the footage, I didn't notice somebody had wrote like a web page in chalk for a GoFundMe for the area. Like, we just come in and like rub brick the fuck out of this like newly painted ledge. Some guy was like shouting out the window, and we're like, that you're just kind of seeing the rub brick come off. Like, watch. And we swept some of it away, and it really wasn't that bad. And then we waxed it, made it worse. But somebody started shouting out of another flat at us, and I just decided, like, oh, we'll just ignore them. And we just did ignore them, and they just went away. Like, I'm just going to do that from now on. Just ignore when people start shouting and not take them on. Just act like I don't have a fucking clue what's going on. Like, they'll just go, like, especially in Leith, they'll just be like, right, those cunts aren't from here. Like, they probably don't even speak English. Like, that's golden. Like, what can we do? We'll call the police. They'll take an hour and a half to come. We'll be long gone by that point.
That's true.
So I think that's a new one. Just completely ignore anybody shouting at me.
That was the approach I tried. I was like, we'll just keep going. I won't interact with her. And then she literally walked across the street to us, and I was like, cool, she's not giving up. Right?
Yeah.
But then it was funny. She pulled out I'll phone the police cars, and I was like, yeah, go for it. They're not going to be here anytime soon. When they are, they're just going to be like, I also love I love the phone call. It's like, so there's these 3 guys, and they're on rollerblades, and they keep jumping on stuff. And you have the police officer's just going to be like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you actually wasting my time with this right now?
Saying that though, that happened to us years ago, and we're like, cool, we carry on skating the spot, and the police did show up, and everybody ran apart from me and Timmy, and we were like, hey, sorry, because the police were always sound, and the police were chatting away to us, and it was the security guards, and it was at a shopping centre, the Union Square in Aberdeen. We're just getting a barrier at the back, and one of the police officers was really nice. He was just like, oh, I used to shoot snowboarding, and he was just like, he went to his senior police officer, and he was like these guys aren't doing anything, blah blah blah. We're like, oh, thanks very much. They took our details in a little black book, and a week later, me and Timmy got letters from the Procurator Fiscal telling us that we were on a warning, and if we were caught doing anything else within the next 2 years in Aberdeen, that we would be done for vandalism and breach of the peace and everything. And we were like, what? Like, the one time we're like, we'll just be like civilized, we won't run off and things like that. Everything was golden. Like a week later, they're like, fuck you. Like,
yeah, they good cop, bad cop to you. They good cop, bad cop to you just incredibly there. Yeah. They're like, wow, those guys were so nice. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. They shafted you.
Yeah. I remember coming away from it with Timmy, and I was just like, that was crazy. Like, he was so nice. Like, he totally had our back. Because I think at the shopping centre, they were trying to say we were sparking or starting fires on the rail, and we're like, no, we were shooting a photo, and we're like, it's probably the flashes from our cameras. And he was like, no, it's fire. like, dude, can you see anything burning anywhere? Like,
yeah, that is random.
But, yeah.
Right, we've dragged this out long enough. No one's going to watch to this. No one's going to watch to this long. But yeah, we'll roll the footage. People can put the pressure on you. We'll go back and we'll actually get it clean.
Okay, clean, right. Clean with the full cab out. That's what I want.
Right. Until then, go and sort your camera setup, because it's embarrassing. That webcam setup was.
I'm never going to have to do that. I'm literally never going to have to do this again. I stand behind the camera normally.
Well, I'm not going to get you on again if this is the bullshit that's going to be happening. No way. It's happened again. right. Get off the phone. Yeah. This is infuriating.
It's your side this time.
Right. Speak to you in a bit.
Right. Bye.
Oh my god, the back foot is enough. Oh man! I'm not going fast enough. I was like, no. Oh my god! It's leaning too far. I need to just get the line down. I'm miles away. Dragged. Oh my god! Oh, I thought. Oh fuck! Oh fuck! Not fucking drinking too much. Oh my god! I fucking panicked! I moved my foot! Your foot in the middle. Yeah. Oh, fuck. It's so fucking hard, man. Oh my god. I need to stand up. It's just really hard on something. I'm getting really tired. Oh my god, man. Oh, that bit is getting so. I overjumped so much. Oh no! Please. Sorry.
Yeah, breathe and then just
and that's fucked.
Yeah, where did that?
Ellie, you bastard. A few more, come on.
Ah, fucking shoulder.